Welcome to M&A Diaries. On this episode, I sit down with Alan Wilson, Managing Director of Wilson Partners, and Pippa Hawkes, Director of BS and Associates. I talk to them about the current issues and challenges faced around talent within the accountancy practice industry, but more specifically around succession. Alan and Pippa talk to me about their ideas and how they combat the challenges faced. This is through nurturing and development of their future leaders. This makes for a fantastic conversation, as Allan and Wilson Partners are an investment-backed accountancy practice who are rapidly growing, whilst Pippa runs BSN Associates, which are a smaller independent firm based in the West Midlands.
Hello, Alan and Pippa. Thank you for being with me today. Much appreciated. I hope you're both well. The reason why I wanted to bring you both on today is, and I'll ask you just to give a bit of a brief synopsis on yourselves and the practices that you're in charge of, just to understand both sides of the ecosystem in terms of your, quite a fast growing paced acquiring firm. And Pippa, you've been through your own journey in terms of buying into the partnership along with your business partner, Hannah, as well. So we'd love to kind of detail that, but equally from the different sizes of the practices, how you go about incentivizing and keeping your next generation of leaders wanting to stay with you and passionate on your journey. It'd be great, Pippa, if you wouldn't mind just giving a bit of an overview on yourself and BSN, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Pippa Hawkes. I'm 50% shareholder and director at BSN, as James said, with my fellow business partner, Hannah Justice. And my background, I studied economics to start with and quickly decided I didn't want to be an economist, and being an accountant was a much better decision. So I did the usual track really and joined one of the big four, did my training there, absolutely loved it, had a ball for 10 years, learnt a lot, made some great friends and contacts. And then what I really enjoyed was working with owner-managed businesses. So I sort of started looking around to see what my options were, maybe going to be an FD of a business or just what my options were. And it was a family friend actually that was part owner of BSN, who encouraged me to join BSN. And that was, as I later learned, part of his succession plan. But also the skill set that I had at the time, which was very advisory focused, lent itself really well to the owner-managed portfolio and actually helping people through their journey of owning a business and lifetime events that happen during that process where they might need to raise money or acquire a company or sell a company. And so sort of helped set up the corporate finance department at BSN. But I'm very much a general practice partner, do a bit of everything, and really enjoy the challenge of working with owner-managed businesses and getting stuck in, really. So that's me in a nutshell and BSN.
Lovely. And how big's your team at the moment,
So we've
Pippa?
got 27 people. And so we've been growing.
Lovely.
I joined 8 years ago and we've roughly doubled in size over that 8-year period. And we very much try and recruit fresh talent from university, school leavers, train up our own people. But inevitably, as you grow, you need different people at different levels along the way. So we have recruited more experienced hires as well. So it's nice to see the team growing.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And Alan, if you wouldn't mind, talk a little bit about yourself and Wilson Partners, please.
Yeah, thank you, James. So Alan Wilson, I'm the Managing Director of Wilson Partners. Started the business alongside my brother back in 2008, so just over 16 years ago now. And kind of the reason for doing so was largely seeing a big gap in the market between your high street firms of accountants that were pretty reactive and largely compliance focused, and then your big boys and girls that seem to be going after ever bigger and bigger fish. And we felt that in the middle, there was, much like Pippa says, a huge chunk of good quality SME owner managed businesses that just weren't getting the support from the high street, were unloved by the bigger firms. And to be fair, 16 years on, that gap seems to have certainly been there and grown some. So that's how we started. We have, during that time, had some really strong organic growth, building out our service lines across to become a full service firm. So that's introducing corporate finance, audit, full outsourcing service. And then about 3.5 years ago, we were approached by a family office-backed investment firm who were looking to invest into a platform to help accelerate their growth. At the time, it was quite opportunistic for us. As I say, we were growing really strongly organically, But the more we got talking to the team, the more we thought, actually, this could be a really good opportunity for us to turbocharge what we're doing and kind of accelerate all the great stuff that we thought we were doing and were doing, particularly around culture and our people, and go and basically kind of add acquiring like-minded businesses into our strategic mix. So we're now kind of 3 years in post-investment. It's all going really, really well. We've made 5 acquisitions to date. Wow. So we're now about 170 people across the predominantly south of England, and that's our focus. But we've also, a couple of years ago, also added an office down in South Africa to our team. So we've now got 25 people in our Stellenbosch office, which is very attractive for our team in terms of requesting trips down there to go and see some of the teammates.
And that team in South Africa grew pretty quickly as well. I remember when it was just 1 or 2 people over there.
Yeah, and it all came about through trying to find really good access to talent, certainly. And it started with our corporate finance team, where we were struggling with a few key roles. And we started with one, followed by another couple quite quickly, and then have grown that out across all service lines throughout the business. So it's proving to be really good for us so far. And we've got a cracking team down there.
Lovely. Fantastic. Well, look, I appreciate that overview. I think it's going to really help set a bit of context for everyone as you're answering some of the questions and discussion points that we're going to go over today. And I guess to start, just to set that background, if you like, and set the scene. As we know, M&A within the accountancy practice industry at the moment is super high in terms of activity levels. There's various other reasons for that, but one of the key issues is that next generation succession of leaders coming through, whether that might be 1 or 2 partner firms through to the top 20. Everyone's struggling with that next level of succession coming through and their own challenges. For me, it would be good just to understand what your experiences have been, both within your own businesses, but also when speaking to some of your peers as well, of those issues that they're seeing as well. So, Pippa or Allan, if you've got any comments there.
I think COVID changed quite a lot, actually, of the culture, and I think we've got this sort of dilemma where we're a client service business first and foremost, so. Our job is to help clients, and that involves creating trusted relationships with them and supporting them. But you've got this sort of dilemma at the moment where people want flexibility and agile working, and they want the ability to work from home, but you've also got to provide a client service and build a rapport with the clients. And we're living in a world that is very demanding. People want things immediately on demand. And it's how do you combine all those challenges and also kind of have a work-life balance? And I think it's a really difficult thing as a business owner to try and balance, how all that fits together and offer that to your team as well. So from my perspective, I think people, coming through, the ones that are ambitious, find a way to sort of manage that dilemma and form really good relationships quite quickly, but also be able to work agilely and flexible, sort of when they work. Perhaps it's not your traditional business hours and things. And those are the people.
Well, that's part of being an entrepreneur and a business owner.
Those people seem to thrive and are coming through. And then I think there's other people that just accept, I'm going to get sort of stuck at a level because I don't want that responsibility. I just want to do a good job. Yeah. And that's okay. And I'm comfortable with not taking on that additional responsibility because I'm not prepared to sort of sacrifice what else I might have to give up in order to give that extra level that's required as a business owner.
Yeah. That's the general theme that I see as well when I'm speaking to various partners and owners is, and again, it's a very sweeping statement in terms of the next generation, but a lot of them are very good accountants as such that, very good at looking after their clients, but that added responsibility of running their business. And maybe it's just down to, certain gaps in skill set of commercialities, or they're not ambitious enough to step up and run that business. Or conversely, you've got those that are ambitious enough to step up, but they're just really struggling to get their hands on the capital at the moment to be able to buy into the equity. Allan, is that what you're kind of seeing in your own business as well?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's, I think about it almost with 2 hats. One is the opportunity with firms we talk to where succession is an issue, and therefore it presents us with the opportunity to bring them on board and allow the shareholder directors, partners, etc., some sort of either future, knowing that succession won't be an issue. And then we've got kind of internally within our own business, how do we incentivize and bring through the talent of the future? And I think the comment around people maybe not wanting the responsibility of running a business, I would differentiate from ownership of the business, because I think there's plenty of people that are coming through that quite want that responsibility, want to see career progression, development, etc., but don't want to go and remortgage their house, borrow lots of money to write a check to become a partner of a traditional accounting firm. And therefore the two are kind of slightly different. And I think that actually, for us, and we might touch on it a little bit later, but for us, that presents an opportunity also within our own business, because we can differentiate career progression and what you can do within the business from ownership, which I think's, it won't suit everyone, but I think it's a good opportunity for us at the moment.
Yeah, nicely put there, Alan. And yes, we will delve into it a little bit more later on, how you go about incentivizing those people that do want to go in the journey and are ambitious enough to take control of responsibility. And I guess on that capital part, we know the banks aren't looking to help as much as possible. People are, they've got a lot of financial responsibilities now, young families, so they are struggling to get their hands on that capital to buy in. So certainly, Pippa, you were in that position, yourself and Hannah. You bought into the firm as you was coming through. So how did you, it'd be great to hear a little bit more about that and your story about how you broached that subject and end up buying out the incumbent equity owners.
Yeah, I mean, we structured a deal whereby, the price that we'd agreed was a fair price for both parties. We structured it over a 5-year period with a view to paying it off earlier, because we were trying to grow over that period. So, in theory, it should get paid off more quickly. And I'm a strong believer that people, if they're coming into equity ownership, should put some skin in the game. Now, you can go and get an unsecured loan, can't you, for 25, 30 grand. So I think in my head, I was asked to put in personally about £60,000. And that was a lot of money for me, in my early 30s to walk away from. So I was bought in. I wouldn't have a tough week at the office and then just think, oh, actually, it's not for me after all. So I think it's important that there is a bit of skin in the game. But, the deal that we structured was such that it was repayable out of the future profits. And that worked well for us. And actually, we still very much used the outgoing partner as a sensible person to approach for advice and support. And during that period, we did a couple of acquisitions ourselves, and, he supported that journey and actually almost waited for his money because he could see the benefits of using the cash we actually invested in our building, we did an acquisition, but he could see the benefits that would bring to the business going forward. And he's still, a very strong supporter of the business, even though he's not a shareholder and we don't owe him any more money. And I think if you can find that right fit, obviously, it's strike it lucky, and there's different models out there that allow the same result, but perhaps less risk for outgoing partners. But I think, the team coming through have got to show a little bit of risk, because ultimately you don't want them to just walk away if it gets a bit tough.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's going to be my next question, actually, because there might be people listening to this episode and thinking they know that the owner of the business at the moment, maybe it's a 1 or 2 partner firm, is getting older and probably approaching retirement. Did you approach the outgoing partner, or did they come to you and say, look, you're going to be my succession? How did that conversation start?
Yeah, I think when I approached the outgoing partner about my career options, that's where the fit sort of worked quite well. And he could obviously see that, if I came into the business and had an impact, then I would be the right person to help the future succession plan for him. So I think he was very savvy and recruited ahead of an exit event for himself. But I think people shouldn't be scared to approach the leadership team. And I do think it's healthy for a business to have fresh input. And myself and my business partner, Hannah, we're quite conscious that we need the next generation to be coming through to challenge us and say, well, are we using the best tools? Are we doing the best thing? There's quicker ways to do things, and and sort of pushing us to say, we can add extra value to the business. Let's get rewarded for that. And we're quite open to that discussion. And then everyone should win, because then you share part of a bigger pie, don't you? So might depend who the
absolutely.
leadership are, but I think most people would be open to that conversation.
But I think that point that Pippa makes around the communication and long-term career objectives, etc., is just so important. So communication across all levels is always really important, but understanding your team and them coming through and what their wants, desires, ambitions are is hugely important, because then everyone's on the same page. There's no surprises, and it just leads to some really good outcomes. So that's super important.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Alan, turning to your situation where you have taken on investment in the last few years, and as you were saying earlier on, you've got different ways of incentivizing and energizing the next generation of leaders as such. What sort of tools and mechanisms are you using Wilson Partners to bring those leaders through?
Yeah, I think there's, again, making that distinction between the future leaders of the business and the ownership of the business. So from a leadership perspective, one of the key things we did post taking investment was to recruit a head of employee experience. So we talk about culture being front of center of everything we do, our people being super important, creating a kind of the best place to come and work in the industry is kind of what we want. So that was a key hire for us. But what it then allowed us to do was to implement things like properly implement things like our agile clear review system, which is very much based around one-to-ones, understanding those career objectives, setting objectives. How do I get to the next level? Do I want to get to the next level? Those sorts of conversations. We've also got a management and leadership development program that we've now been able to put in place. So typically there's about 10 or 11 people on each cohort, which we've now run 3 of those across the business. So again, that's super important, because people want to feel that they're developing, and it just gives them skills to both manage and lead, which is really important. And then from a ownership point of view, I think one of the things we did was recognize that, some people want an element of ownership. It's not going to be a partnership like a traditional partnership model. That's just not what we've got. We've got a corporate structure. But for those directors in the business, we have the ability for them to buy equity within our topco and therefore have some equity involvement. It's a relatively small check they have to write, and they do have to write it. As Pippa says, it's kind of typically for us, to give an idea, between £25,000 and £50,000. But what that does is, give them that investment opportunity, but completely separating that from their role. So if we've got 2 people that are equivalent and one wants to invest and one doesn't, it doesn't change anything about their role or their position or involvement in a management board or whatever. It's purely a kind of investment decision. But we want people to be invested. It helps for retention. It helps for providing future capital events for them going forward, which will hopefully be good. So that was quite important for us to have some sort of mechanism to allow ownership possibilities.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in this day and age, as you said, around retention and retention of the best talent as well. And I guess that, just to pick up on that point, on the leadership side, if someone was to take that route and they were, leading the charge on a particular division for you, is there just performance-based bonuses that you would put in place there outside of them going down the investment route, or is that not something you get involved with?
Bonuses are one of my favourite topics. I hate them.
Yeah.
It's especially in a firm like ours, which is very open, transparent. We don't do silos. Strong believers in teamwork. A client is a client of the firm, not any individuals. And we want rounded people. We're not just all about chargeable time on the clock. I haven't come up with a mechanism to properly, objectively put a bonus scheme in place. So we have something, but it makes up a small element of our total compensation for people. So I'm much more interested in incentivizing people for long-term progress and improvement, and then largely paying that through increasing salaries. So as people develop, they can get substantial salary increases, absolutely, to go along with how they develop. But the short-term kind of bonus element, I do struggle with. But so you asked about people that are leading teams and making kind of progress within there. The sky's the limit in terms of what they can do. So it's about recognizing those individuals that are really making a difference and incentivizing them in the right way, but not at the detriment of other teams, other individuals, other team members, etc.
No, totally understand that. It's just good to get an inside track on that, especially for the people that will be listening to this as well, to kind of understand how a business of your size might go around that. And Pippa, I saw you nodding away as well there. So I imagine a lot of the sentiments
so hard.
kind of resonated.
It's so hard to bonus people on the right things. And it's, you tweak something and it changes behaviour that you didn't expect. So I totally agree with Alan there. I think, we do bonuses for some people because they're appropriate and they might be, part of their role is maybe they're not as focused on recurring work. So they are incentivized to get out there even when they're busy and continue to build the pipeline. But I think I would rather build it into people's salaries, which is what I always say, and push them higher up the salary tree. Because then all that happens is if they get a regular bonus, they sort of view that as their salary anyway. So in my head, I'd rather pay everyone fairly, look at our other benefits we can offer to make sure we're looking after them and their families, just make sure it's a nice place to work, really, rather than big chunky bonuses that perhaps you might get or you might not.
Yeah. And as you said, like sometimes you might encourage or attract the wrong types of people if they're just literally money driven as such. Obviously that drives a lot of people's reason why we come to work and we start businesses in the first place, but to just put it down to that bonus material, that then that's gonna probably attract the wrong type of person at the top of your trees that you're looking for in terms of leadership. So before we move on to how you guys nurture that talent through, I'd love to get both your takes on the advent of EOTs coming into the accountancy practice space. There's a couple that we know are set up now. I'm certainly aware of the ACCA approving a couple of others that are in the works at the moment. It'd just be great to get your take. And have they got a place in the accountancy practice industry, do you think? Yeah.
Who wants that
I don't
first,
mind.
Pippa?
I mean, I think
that's when I know I've asked a good question, because both
I'll
of you
go first and then
held off
Alan
for a
can see what
second
you
there.
think. But my view on them is slightly skeptical. I think if you've got a good team and, quite a close-knit, smaller team, it might be appropriate, is my view. However, I just think, does it work for the longevity of the company? That would be my concern. And, if all the employees in theory got together and the trustees, whoever they are, thought it was appropriate, then, what if everyone wanted to go down to a 4-day working week, as an example, and they control the company and they say, right, well, let's push that through. But it impacts, how do you then remunerate everyone fairly? How do you service clients that need to speak to you on the day that no one's working? Do you do rotas? Like how, there's just so many things that in theory could happen with an EOT. I think you always, in any business, you need that leadership team that are making the decisions on behalf of the company and driving the strategy. And I think, that doesn't suit everybody. Not everybody wants to be involved in that. And with an EOT, in theory, it should be the employees doing that. So I think in a tight-knit team, I could see it working. In a larger organisation, I think it would be more difficult. I don't know what you think, Alan.
Yeah, I think I would kind of echo some of your sentiment there, to be honest, Pippa. I think there's a number of... Look, it'll be right for some businesses. It's definitely not right for others, much like an EOT and any other business outside the accounting sector. I think there's obvious considerations around kind of audit regulations and ownership that I'm not an EOT expert, so some of this might have gone away, but there will be some considerations around that. Potentially, if it's fast growth or a business that requires some investment, it might hamper the ability to do that. But ultimately, this kind of comes down to why would you do an EOT? And I think there's two main ones. One is the tax impact for the seller.
Absolutely.
So I can understand that, right? Done. But for the business, often it's cited as a way of getting engagement from the whole team. And I would argue that actually we can get engagement from the team without them feeling they've got a small piece of ownership, which in reality doesn't make much difference to their day-to-day lives. So I think from an engagement point of view, I would say kind of, there's other ways to do it that are probably more powerful than just putting in an EOT as a structure.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly a point of conversation that comes up a lot more now when I'm speaking to partners that are thinking about what are the options out there for them, rather than an outright sale or merging with a firm. It's maybe we go down the EOT route. Most of the time, to be honest with you, it is driven just to the tax incentives are there to do it that way. But yeah, it's certainly interesting. I know of a couple of firms, and the ACCA dealing with a couple more just now. So we'll keep an eye on that and see how that progresses from that side. But nice segue, actually, where you're saying about the nurturing the talent and engaging the talent there, Alan. It'd be good to hear from you, Alan, first of all, in terms of how you go about identifying early those next leaders and then nurturing them. You've already alluded to a few of the ways you go about that, but it'd be good to just unpick that a little bit more if you wouldn't mind sharing.
Yeah, it's always an interesting one and potentially tricky at times, but how you identify them is normally quite straightforward in terms of they've got a curiosity, a hunger to get involved in added responsibility or things that might not sit squarely within their job role. For example, attending networking events, thinking of some new marketing ideas, system improvements, that sort of thing, that just mark them out as being different. So you can normally spot people quite early who are kind of there and should be the leaders, certainly managing earlier, but leaders of the future. And then it's largely two things. One is around communication, as I alluded to earlier. So keeping kind of a constant dialogue around kind of anything that's frustrating them, i.e. pace of growth. Is that frustrating them, or do they know what they need to be doing to get to that next level? It might be looking after a certain portfolio of client size. It might be kind of additional clients that they're bringing on board, whatever it might be. Do they know what's expected of them? So being quite clear around those things. And then, the skills is the obvious thing. So most trainees go through audit, accounting qualifications, etc. So that's quite straightforward. But it's then, providing skills around things like sales, client relationships, all the softer skills, which are really, really important in building a career and doing well. So, and then supplement that with things like our kind of management and leadership development program, which again, talking about having difficult conversations, managing people, how you're managing a client portfolio, the things that you should be focusing on, all that kind of stuff. But I think the final thing I'd say is a lot of sharing of information and transparency also brings them in to feeling very included in how decisions are made, why the decisions are made, how it then impacts them and their ability to contribute to it. So trying to filter through that kind of the plan and how my role actually contributes to the overall success of the business.
Yeah. And on the program that you've got set up internally, how frequently are you getting that group together, or are you holding workshops, etc.?
So we run it's on average about every 7 months. It lasts for about 6 sessions over 4 or 5 months.
Okay.
So it's depends which way you look at it. It's time intensive or it's not, but it's time well spent. But I think one of the benefits for us we're also seeing is those peer-to-peer relationships getting made across the business from different locations. So we'll have various locations all coming together. And I think that's almost as important as the actual material that you're doing, because you're building those relationships, you're understanding where expertise lies in different areas of the business. So that almost networking point of view becomes also really important.
Oh, hugely, especially if they're kind of all growing through the business at the same time, and they've got those relationships in different areas and different locations, as you say, and they've got good relations there.
And we do also mix it up. So it's not all kind of one level that all goes on it together. So we'll have different levels. In fact, on the next one that starts in a month's time. So we'll have different levels across the organization, which again really helps kind of from a networking point of view. Yeah. It'll help me get to know some people that I might not know as well today and help identify future stars of the future, maybe, who knows? But it's that's also quite important. And see, you're human.
Yeah, absolutely. No, brilliant. And Pippa, from your perspective, how do you go about, that identification and then nurturing them through?
Yes, similar really, I guess. As Alan says, it's quite obvious when people are keen and they're asking questions and they're curious and they sort of want to get involved in things. So it's nurturing that we have a sort of Rising Stars program that, I'm leading, which is a regular monthly strategy meeting where we're talking about strategy of the business, the future planning, generating ideas within the team and trying to implement those ideas so that people, own their own ideas and can see them being implemented. And we also get all the managers together quarterly and they actually chair their own meeting. And Hannah and I sort of attendees at that meeting. So they lead the agenda. It's a very open discussion really. And we sort of take it all in and add in our input as if, we're not chairing it. We're just attendees, which is quite powerful. And there's some good ideas that come out of that as well. And then the other thing we've done is we have sort of pinpointed a couple of people that are probably getting closer to equity ownership or leadership roles. And we've actually asked clients to, if you like, interview them. It's very informal. They might go for dinner or have a chat. But basically, the clients who know us really well, they know what BSN stands for, are sort of discussing with these potential stars, how do you feel about sort of becoming a part owner of BSN and what are your values and do they fit with the firm? And it's quite interesting, the feedback that comes out of that. And you can then quickly decide, and it actually helps the individuals as well, I think, decipher to see, okay, that's really what's involved. And it's not us saying it, it's a client actually saying, well, this is what I get out of my relationship with Pippa or Hannah. And, they've helped me navigate through this, that, or the other. And that's what I've valued. And therefore, is that the kind of relationship you want to have with your clients? It's not just a transactional, I do a piece of work and then that's it. Goodbye. It's like, I know everything about their lives and, they phone me before they do anything.
It's an interesting approach.
But yeah.
That's an interesting approach. I don't think I've quite heard that before.
It's unique.
I quite like that. I think that's certainly from a client retention point of view, if your clients had a hand in basically getting the next future leaders into the business or through the business, then you'd have thought they're fairly sticky for a long time.
It's a really trusted exercise on both sides. And, I really value the feedback that we've had out of that. And I think it has helped those individuals in their career journey and really focus on what they need to work on or what they're thinking about. So, that was a bit of an experiment and thankfully it went well.
No, good stuff. It's good to hear these little bits here. But, look, these concepts and these initiatives and schemes you put in place all sound great and wonderful, obviously, and they obviously do work, and hence why they're still there. But just to emphasize that and highlight that to the people listening in today, are there particularly any particular options or examples that you can think of where someone has come in from an early age and you've seen that spark in them, and by using these schemes and these mechanisms and nurturing that you've done, seeing them through to either nearly leadership or at least knocking on the door of ownership or leadership? And Pippa, if you wanted to fire away with your example first, fantastic.
I'd say so. Probably examples coming through. So, for example, we had one of our team who joined us as a graduate from university. I mean, as soon as I saw the CV, I thought, this is the star of the future kind of thing. And it's been proven, but it's things like we did some lead generation work. And actually one of the leads that came through, I just said, look, have a go with this one. And just, if it works, great. If it doesn't, we've not really lost anything, but make it your own. And really go for it and see what you can get out of it. And we're based in the Midlands. He jumped in the car. They're based in Southend-on-Sea. Took the guy out. Took the guy out. Formed a great relationship. We thought we were going down to talk about acquisitions and funding. He came back and he's like, well, I've won the audit. I've won this. I've won that. They will be selling in the future. And, he was absolutely buzzing from it. And then, he didn't do the audit, but he kind of oversaw booking it in and getting everything set up and did a great job for the client. client was really happy. We're helping them with some other stuff, and it's a great success story. And the enjoyment that individual got from doing that, you can't, back to the bonus thing, I could pay him all the bonuses in the world and it wouldn't have got the buzz out of his job that he did from doing that. And that's the skill set he's going to need to be a partner. And, it was almost like, Pippa's the partner. And they were like, yeah, I don't want to talk to her. Like, I don't know who she is, kind of thing. I was like, great, this is great.
Yeah.
So I think, seeing that, it's like, yeah, it's a slam dunk. And it's just experience now that he needs and to keep doing those things. So
yeah, and for you, it's important just to keep putting him in those positions of challenges and outside the comfort zone to keep on developing
around in case something goes a bit wrong, but allowing them to just fly and flourish and not being protectionist as a leader and sort of going, oh no, you can't possibly do that because you don't know how to do it yet. It's like, no, go on, like have a go, try. If it goes wrong, I'm here to support you. I've got your back, but you need to do it in your way, in your style, and it's your relationship.
Yeah. No, lovely to hear that. And Alan, from your side, any particular examples that you can think of, success stories?
Well, the kind of the obvious one that springs to mind, this is going back over a few years now, but we had one of our, basically the guy that heads up our accounts and business services team now. So joined the equity about 3 years ago. So very much at the top table. Now he joined us as I think it's probably a 2-year part qualified, was relocating from Plymouth, coming back to this neck of the woods. We didn't have a job for him, but through our network, someone said, he's coming back, give him some time just to point him in the right direction. Anyway, we had the interview and we thought, we might not have a role for him. We were probably only about 7 or 8 people at that stage. So we quickly made a role, brought him in, and kind of over that time has flourished. And I think you just see again that kind of curiosity, hunger for development and what can I do to get to the next level was kind of prevalent all the way through. So that's a definite homegrown success story, which is fantastic. If I think kind of right now we're blessed to have a lot of really good young, I say young at my age, it's kind of, they're not that young, but they're still young, people that are really keen to develop, as I said earlier, things like networking events, initiatives for the firm that they can get involved in. And as Pippa said, I think a culture of kind of where we trust each other, where we are a team, no one gets beaten up for a bad idea or making a mistake. So providing that support and encouragement to go and do it. And there's one of our team that was, she was really keen, came in quite early doors saying she wanted to create a women's networking event. Can I have some budget to go and do it? Now, yes is the sort of obvious answer. There might have been other people that might have said no, but actually, no, you go and do that. It's a fantastic initiative. Here's the support from the time and the money point of view. And that's now flourished into something really big and permeates across the business now. So those are little examples of, kind of the up and coming talent doing some really good things.
Yeah. I mean, the general theme from both of you is just that empowerment, right? Empowering those that want to get on to get on and give them the opportunity to do so.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Just zooming out more so directed at Alan, because you've gone through the acquisition trail. Obviously, as we know, we've spoken about this loads of times, Alan, people and culture is probably one of the most important parts of any acquisition to make sure that it works in a successful post-completion. How do you go about identifying those leaders? Again, a lot of it would be speaking to the owners of the business you're about to acquire, but making sure that leadership team and that next generation underneath them bought into what you're looking to do and establishing that relationship pretty soon after acquiring.
Yeah, it's a good question, because obviously through a process and getting to know a business, we will typically only be speaking to the partners, directors, shareholders of that business. So we won't know specifically what the next generation look like. But given kind of quite often the conversations with the existing leadership team of the business create or paint a pretty good picture of what the culture's like, and therefore what the people coming through will look like. You can look at websites and kind of bios, etc., that we build up during the DD process, but until you kind of face to face, you don't properly know. But typically, if we've assessed the business as a whole, and certainly the leadership team to have a good culture that we think will fit with us, it would be a surprise then to find people that they think are the next stars of the future that aren't really aligned with them. So it's in a question for us to get in and be speaking and kind of sharing opportunities across the whole business, things like the stuff we do on management and leadership training, getting them involved early on, just as a demonstration of what is now available, which quite often they might not have had something like that available to them. So it's that's how we kind of tangibly demonstrate it. But assessing what they're like before we get into bed with them, if you like, is tricky.
Yeah. No, it's always tricky. I know from smaller businesses and smaller practices that we've been involved in the transactions, sometimes there is the opportunity to go under a different guise, especially if it's a smaller generalist firm. They might not have R&D specialism, for example, and the acquirer might be an R&D specialist who can go in under the guise of doing the R&D work and having some time to sit down there with the teams. And we've certainly seen that a few times, but certainly at the larger scale, as you said, it's a lot harder because you're just going to be dealing with the equity and the owners of that practice up until completion, for all the sensitivity reasons that we know exist when having such conversations. So no, I appreciate that background there. And I guess just to wrap up the conversation, really, it's been really interesting to hear all of your thoughts on the topics that we've covered. And the reason why I wanted you both on here is because I know as businesses, you are very people and culture focused. That screams through whenever I've spoken to you or had any dealings with yourself. So I thought, for us, it would be great to share your experiences and your ideas and the way you go about things with the rest of the people that will be listening in. So just as a conclusion, what would be the two main bits of advice that you would like to offer out to anyone that might be listening in that has some potential next superstars coming through that you would do to make sure that they are nurtured and brought through as you would hope to leadership and, ultimately succession? Yeah, Pippa, would you like to just share with us the two main points you think would be important?
Yeah, I think first and foremost is having open and honest conversations and being really transparent on kind of what's required of different roles within the firm, and then trying to work out for them what suits them personally in their family situations, and what appetite have they got for risk, what appetite have they got for different roles, what do they enjoy doing. I mean, it's hard enough just coming to work every day, isn't it? So I think you've really got to enjoy what you do. I'm a strong believer in that. And I think if you get that right, then people will thrive naturally. So I think that's really important. And then the second thing is then having an open team forum where people understand the positions and the discussions that you're having, and people's roles and responsibilities, and being clear that, we're quite clear if someone doesn't want to become an equity partner, that they've still got a very important role in the business and they are still, as Alan said, a leader, and they've got responsibilities. But that shouldn't then block other people coming through that do want that equity ownership. So again, it's just the culture, isn't it? It's having a nice, open, transparent culture and being accountable to your team and not saying things you don't mean.
Yeah. Well, and to that point, you're right. You can't have all strikers on the pitch at one point. Otherwise, the team would be able to play it all as it should be.
You want a nice balance.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think what I would have said, to be perfectly honest, I think, communication's key. Talk and talk again. So it's all about understanding what they are looking to do so that there's no surprises and help them get there. I think to do that, you just firstly have to build a really trusting relationships where people can be brutally honest and open. And because sometimes these conversations aren't that easy, they should be, but it takes a certain level of trust to do that. And I think it's also then within those conversations being able to differentiate between not just people that might want managerial kind of development and people leading skills, but those technical experts that want to just be proper technical experts, is understanding the two. And therefore, different people have different strengths. And kind of, whilst I'm a fan of getting averagely good at the stuff you're not very good at, focus on your key strengths. So there's no point if someone's really good at relationships and people, etc., but might not technically be the best accountant and has no real desire to be a better technical accountant. Let's not beat them up about their technicals. Let's focus on what they're really good at and point them in the direction of those roles within the business that, relationship building, client interaction really works with. So play to your strengths and minimize weaknesses, but certainly play to those strengths and develop those roles along those strengths.
Lovely. Fantastic. Well, look, really, really nice way in which to finish the conversation. Thank you for your insights today. I wish you and both your teams all the best, and your future leaders as well all the best when they work their way through. So no, thank you for being with us, guys, and have a good rest of the day.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, James. Pleasure.
Take care.